Two people invest the exact same amount every month. Same fund, same return, same discipline. One starts at 25, the other starts at 35. And by retirement, the person who started 10 years earlier has hundreds of thousands of dollars more. Not because they worked harder, not because they earned more, not because they took bigger risks, because they gave time a head start. And in personal finance, time is not just a factor. Time is the advantage. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the real reason compound interest changes everything. Not the classroom definition, not the finance textbook version, the actual mechanics, the actual numbers, and the reason a 10-year delay can quietly change an entire retirement. By the end, you'll understand something most people never do. When it comes to compounding, starting late doesn't just slow you down. It changes the finish line. Let's look at two people. We'll call them Elena and David. Elena starts investing at 25. She puts away $300 a month into a total stock market index fund. She does that for 10 years, from age 25 to 35. Then she stops completely. No more contributions. Total invested $36,000. Now David. David doesn't start until 35. Same fund, same $300 a month, but he keeps going for 30 years, from 35 to 65. Total invested $108,000. So if you look only at contributions, David wins. He invested 3 times more money. But that is not how compound interest works. At a 7% average return, Elena ends up with about $512,000 by 65. David ends up with about $365,000. Elena invested 1/3 as much and ended up with more money. That is the part most people miss. She didn't win because she put in more. She won because her money had more time to grow. Compound interest sounds simple, but most people still misunderstand it. Simple interest pays you only on the original amount. Compound interest pays you on the original amount, plus the interest you already earned. So the first year feels small. $1,000 at 10% becomes $1,100. That extra 100 doesn't just sit there. Now it starts earning too. The next year you earn interest on $1,100, not $1,000. Now you have $1,210, then $1,331, then $1,464. It starts slowly, almost too slowly for people to care. And that is exactly why so many people ignore it. They look at the early years and think, that's it? But compounding is not designed to impress you early. It is designed to surprise you later. Here's the hidden enemy. People think money grows because of the amount they put in, but wealth often grows because of the amount of time the money is left alone. That is why starting at 25 and starting at 35 are not the same thing. It is not a minor delay. It is an entire decade of lost compounding. And once that decade is gone, you cannot buy it back. That is what makes compounding so powerful and so unforgiving. There is one shortcut that makes this easier to see. It is called the rule of 72. Take 72 and divide it by your annual return. That tells you roughly how many years it takes your money to double. At 7%, your money doubles in about 10 years. At 10%, it doubles in about 7 years. At 4%, it doubles in about 18 years. So if you start at 25 and invest until 65, you get about 4 doubling cycles. If you start at 35, you get about 3. That one missing doubling can mean a massive difference by retirement. Not because the market changed, not because your strategy changed, because time changed. Now let's make this real. Say you invest $500 a month at 7%. If you start at 25 and keep going until 65, you end up with roughly $1.2 million. If you start at 35 instead, you end up with roughly $567,000. Same monthly amount, same return, same discipline, different start date. That 10-year delay cost you about $633,000. Not in contributions, in future value. That is the real price of waiting. And the worst part is, the person who waits usually doesn't feel the loss at first, because the numbers seem small in the beginning. That's how compounding hides in plain sight. So, why do smart people still start late? Because the brain is bad at caring about small numbers that live far in the future. A few $100s a month does not feel life changing. A 10-year delay does not feel catastrophic. And a retirement account that only grows a little in year one feels underwhelming. That is the psychological trap. People don't reject compounding because they hate wealth. They reject it because early progress looks boring, and boring things are easy to delay. Then one day they realize the delay had a cost. There is another trap that destroys compounding even faster. Withdrawing too early. When you take money out of a compounding account, you don't just lose the money you removed. You lose the future growth that money would have produced. A $10,000 withdrawal today can quietly turn into a six-figure loss later. That is the invisible cost. Not just what you took, what you prevented from ever happening. This is why people who build wealth protect their compounding accounts. They don't treat them like checking accounts, they let the money stay put. If you are in your 20s, the biggest advantage you have is time. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to pick the perfect stock. You do not need to wait until you earn more. You need to start. If you are in your 30s, you still have time, but the cost of delay is rising fast. If you are in your 40s, the math still works. But now consistency matters even more. The practical move is simple. Start with a retirement account. Use a broad, low-cost index fund. Set automatic contributions, then leave it alone. That is how compounding actually works. Not through genius, through time. The biggest mistake people make with money is not always spending too much. Sometimes it is starting too late. Because in the world of compounding, time is not something you have. It is something your money needs.